Okay, we have a packed agenda, so I'm going to suggest that we start punctually. So hello and welcome everyone. I'm Katie Metzler and I'm Associate VP at Sage Publishing. I lead the teams at Sage who publish our research methods books and our online products, Sage Research Methods and Sage Research Methods Video, as well as our online courses platform, Sage Campus. And I'm joined by a number of my Sage colleagues. If you'd like to give us a wave, Sage colleagues, hello. Hopefully many of you know, but research methods is really central to Sage's history and to our future. And so we're really delighted to have you with us for this exciting event on teaching methods online. If you're on Twitter and you would like to tweet during the event, please use the hashtag Let's Talk Methods. We'll also post to that in the chat for you. This event is run in partnership with the Nuffield Foundation and includes lightning talks from speakers from a number of QSTEP centers. If you're from QSTEP, could you please give us a wave? Yes, great. So QSTEP is a program developed by the Nuffield Foundation and the ESRC to promote a step change in quantitative social science education and training in the UK. And Sage, Nuffield and QSTEP are working together to share some of the excellent pedagogic practice that's come out of the QSTEP centers, both through events like this one, and also by creating an online space for sharing of teaching materials and best practice for teaching quantitative research methods. So today we have a really exciting event planned for you. The format of the event will be a short keynote followed by breakout groups. The main room, this room that we're in now, will remain open after the keynote in case you have questions for our keynote speaker. We hope this event will give you a chance to build your networks, swap tips, share advice and best practices for teaching online. So to kick us off, I'm extremely excited to introduce you to our keynote speaker, Doug Fisher, who is one of the authors of Corwin's best-selling Distance Learning Playbook series. The Distance Learning Playbook for K-12 hit #1 on Publishers Weekly bestseller list and has sold almost 350,000 copies since publication. Two other titles in the series, the Distance Learning Playbook for College and University Instruction, which was published in partnership with Sage, and the Distance Learning Playbook for Parents were published last month, and there's an assessment playbook on the way. We've shared a link in the chat so you can take a look at the series. We're really delighted to have Doug here to open the event and to share some wisdom and top tips from the Distance Learning Playbook with you before we move into the breakout groups for more interaction and discussion. So over to you, Doug.
Thank you, and thanks for all of your collective efforts in ensuring that students have access to really good thinking about how to conduct their research for their future. That's my Twitter, that's my website if that's useful for you. So I want to think about and talk about, I was asked to share more about the instruction. How are we thinking about teaching from a distance when it comes to these content areas? And I would like to acknowledge that teaching is hard because it matters. It matters a lot whether or not the people who pay us to come to our classes actually learn from us. Having a learning goal has a strong influence on overall learning. When students have a learning goal versus no learning goal, they actually learn more. That shouldn't surprise you. That shouldn't be research that says, wow, I never thought of that. But how do we make that happen from a distance? We started this semester with these 3 questions, and we said to students, what are you learning today? Why are you learning this? And how will you know that you have learned it? And we asked students to record Flipgrid each session. So every time they had a class, Flipgrid the answer to these 3 questions as an exit slip for their faculty to say, what worked today? Do my students see relevance from a distance? Do my students know what success looks like? So I'm going to show you a quick example of a student's Flipgrid in response to these 3 questions. Oh, she's upside down. I forgot she recorded her video upside down. That's super awkward. So watch that. See, watch.
Today in stats class, we are talking about an interesting topic about the purpose of random assignments and the importance of it, which is to make each assignment or group equal and to eliminate biases. I learned it because I know that I can use it in the future, or I can maybe even use it now already, so that when it comes to getting to know or seeing a random experiment, I won't get fooled by it and know if everything's equal or correct, or if I'm ever going to make a random experiment myself, I can I can or I will know what to incorporate. I know I have learned this because I can explain to you what I'm learning in stats, and the purpose of it, and how we can use it in our life. We can use it outside of school, not just in stats class. And that's it.
So imagine you are her faculty member and you get a sense across your students, because you taught them on Tuesday night, and they Flipgrid the videos to you, and you get a sense of what stuck and what didn't stick. What misconceptions are there? What errors are there still? And what do they really own that you don't have to teach again? That led us to building this instructional framework for distance learning, where instructors have 4 major moves. They can do demonstrations for students. They can get kids collaborating. They can have young people coaching and facilitating, students practicing. We have all 4 of those moves. What we see mostly is the 2 on the left are done asynchronously. So when we do demonstrations for students, when we get them to practice, those are typically asynchronous. And then when we get them to talk and interact and problem solve, and we're coaching their patterns of errors, we tend to do that synchronously. Now, I recognize some classes are fully asynchronous, fully only online, no synchronous sessions. But in the rapid transition to distance learning, we are seeing many faculty members who have some check-ins synchronously with their students each week. So in this first phase of instruction, the demonstrations, we can do think alouds and lectures, and we can do a worked example. We can process through a problem with them, a situation with them. We can share something. There's all kinds of ways of inviting students into the thinking that we're apprenticing for them. And these tend to be recorded. They tend to be available to students for a long time so they can go back to them as needed. And if you know the research on distance learning, remote learning, online learning, when faculty put videos on their learning management system, virtually no one watches them. We see all these video assets being created and virtually no one is watching them, because the learning management systems have stats. They tell us how many views, how many times they're viewed, etc. So the piece of evidence that influenced me the most was to get increase in video viewing, you need frequent low stakes assessment. Frequent assessments that don't count for a lot, but do count for a little bit. And there's a whole research base on frequent low stakes assessment. And interactive videos are one way to get that frequent low stakes assessment. So the effect size of interactive video is strong. Of all the things for asynchronous learning with a computer, it's the number one. It's the highest influence we have for asynchronous learning with technology, is these interactive videos. There are all kinds of platforms that do this. I'm going to give you a sample platform. This one is called Play Pause It. There are many others, Canvas Studio, Edpuzzle. There are all kinds of these that do this. But I'll give you a sense of an asynchronous lesson for students. Why it's not playing.
All right, so we just got done learning about how we can use data and linear regression models to be able to make predictions, which is pretty dang cool. All right, so what do we have? We've got our explanatory variable right here, which is are the years. We've got 2010 up to 2018. So this is recent data. And then we have our response variable, which is the federal spending, and it looks like these numbers are in billions. Just to kind of make sense of these numbers.
So I give you a little context, and then if you know this system, it pops up a question, and it cannot play any further until students respond to the question. You can make it a right-wrong answer where they have to go back and watch it again if they get it wrong. You can make it a constructed response. You can make it a free response. You can give them choices, whatever you choose to do. But if you can get them to interact with the video and you can create opportunities for frequent low stakes assessment, your students are more likely to engage in this asynchronous learning with these little pop-ups. So this is a teacher instructor created video. You could use YouTube videos, you could use Sage videos, whatever you can bring in video, you can add these quiz functions. So, and there are a bunch of different systems out there that allow for this. Short videos where you can have students respond to the information in real time. Most of these systems will collect it for you and do analytics. And they'll say, what's the error pattern that we're seeing? How many attempts did students make? Did they get it right on the first time or the second time? Whatever you allow in the video for this demonstration of learning. And yes, Edpuzzle's one platform. There's all kinds of, there are 4 or 5. Canvas Studio does this, Edpuzzle, Nearpod, PlayPosit. There are all kinds of ways of doing this. But interactive video is my point, not the platform. I'm not here to sell you a platform. If we can get our students to interact with the video and not just passively assign it, we can actually get some better learning from them. The second part is to get students to collaborate. How do we get them interacting, talking, math talk? How do we get them processing with their peers? Because we know class discussions have a powerful influence on students' learning. We want them to be solving the problems. You all already earned your degrees. You all already have content knowledge. You don't need to take stats over again. It's your students' turn to do the work, and they need some time to interact with one another. So a quick video on that.
Hi, everyone. I'm here to share with you some strategies to increase participation with your students online, and specifically in their when they're in their breakout rooms. So how we can increase participation in a collaborative setting. And so one of the things that has been really successful for me is using shared documents. So in this case, I'm using Google Slides. And what I've done is in the Google Slides, I prepare them with a template for the students. And I think of this very much as like a gallery walk would be in the classroom, right? So you would have posters on the wall ready to go for each of your groups. And just like a gallery walk, in the template, it has opportunity for all of your students to be able to collaborate in different ways. And then, of course, because we're on our online setting, one of the ways to hold students accountable is by assigning colors. So here's an example. Here's the example of a template. So this is here their goal is to take data and to really break it down into looking at graphs and being able to look at the equation of the linear regression model and to be able to make predictions. And so every student was actually given a different set of data, but the process was all the same. And so here's an example of one group's completed slide, right? So they have...
So you get the point. She builds a template. She copies it over and for different groups. She changes the data so they can't see each other's in the slides, and they have to work collaboratively, interacting, talking. They can do this synchronously or asynchronously. She does it inside her Zoom meetings where she forces them into breakout rooms. Other faculty do this as asynchronous, but they must record and load their videos of their collaboration. So you have options here. My point is, part of our instruction needs to include students interacting with each other, problem solving, trying to figure things out. We should also ask them to rate their breakout rooms. How successful was the conversation you have? Because if we have groups that are not being productive, we probably need to revise and update those groups. At some point, we should do some coaching and facilitating. That's what we call it when we guide their thinking. We provide hints and prompts and cues. So we don't give them answers, but we guide their thinking in more sophisticated ways. We're seeing a lot of in synchronous sessions, what we call waterfall chats, where you say to students, here's a question, here's a problem, here's a thought. Type your answer in the chat, but do not hit return, do not hit send, don't let anybody else see it yet. And then on the count of 3, you say waterfall, that's very common, shh, and everybody returns at the same time. And what that does for you as a teacher, as an instructor, is to say, The students cannot copy the first two students' responses, paste it in the chat, and trick you into believing they understand and that they participated. So what I tend to do is I type this, I say, when I say waterfall, I type start in the chat. Their answers follow. And then at some point I type stop. When I download the chat, I have a participation band. Here's where I told them to start. Here's where I told them to stop. And I can see in the chat who did it and who didn't do it. And did they actually engage in the thinking I asked for at that specific time? We're also seeing a lot of response cards. We're seeing a lot of different response opportunities. So I see we're seeing old school dry erase boards in college classes now so that they can hold them up inclusively for the teacher to see what they just did from a distance. We had a teacher here, the one that you just watched, Stacy. Stacy said there's all these old CDs and DVD cases. So what she did is she put green and red paper inside the CD case, got all of her students at a pickup party. This is what you had to pick up. And because she teaches in San Diego. And she can put it on gallery view and ask a question, and they can all hold up the side that they're thinking about for random checking for understanding. Super fast. People are being super creative. The last part of my time could be color blindness. Yes, Jackie. There's always complications with all of the tools we invent. Getting kids to practice, getting young people to practice. So here's one. This is recent from politics in the US. So it's another play pause it video.
I've long wondered whether yard signs move the needle. Are they enthusiasm in the grand scheme?
So I'm skipping so you can see the question.
It turns out the issue has been stopped.
So I jumped to the question so that you could see. I skipped the news report. What's the statistical question being asked? And they have to respond to that. And the video will not play. And then there are more questions that she's asking that you can have there. So they're watching a live news. It's current events. It's for practice. And this person argues about the statistics of lawn signs and do they change people's patterns of voting? And so she's using a current event to have students apply what they know, what statistical questions, what tools were being used. When he says 8 out of 10, what does that mean statistically? Some pop-up questions. Getting our students to practice is really important. And that's why we keep assigning them all those practice things to do, because deliberate practice makes the instruction stick. This model of deliberate practice, we need to start at the right and think, do my students have a mental model of expertise? What does it mean to think like a researcher? What does it mean to think quantitatively? What does it mean to reason? And then when they have a mental model from you, then they were more likely to respond to feedback, to focus on the practice, work on goals, and struggle, push themselves to struggle. We started seeing this very commonly. So here's a learning intention. Students should be able to distinguish
I think you've muted, Doug. Oh.
I just went on mute when I tried to move the screen. Sorry about that. Student, that's the learning intention up there, distinguishing population and sample. As an exit slip, what are all the things you know after class today? And what are all the ways you can show it? So simple tools to get them. My last comment, I love this test. I hope you like it as well. Here's a stats test. The entire test has already been finished for you. Here it is. Because you know everybody's cheating online. You all know that. There are TikTok videos about how to cheat on proctored exams now. So just so you know. So here's what this teacher did. He said, here's the stats test. It's completely finished for you. Your job is to figure out if the person did it right, and if not, what caused the error. Don't tell me the error. I can see the error. What's the error analysis? What caused this person to make this error? And this teacher said to me in an interview, I will never go back to a different kind of test. I want my students to be able to analyze error patterns in research. So that changed him for a long time. So that was super fast. And my last comment to you, take care of yourself. This is hard work. Most of us did not sign up to teach like this. We wanted to be around students, guiding their research. But this is what we have. So remember, you're important too. Take care of yourself. Now let me catch up on the chat. I know we're going to go into some breakout rooms.
Thank you so much, Doug. And you do have some questions in the chat, and I think it would be great if we've got a few minutes for you to answer them before the breakouts. Is that okay, Chris and Daniela? Are we okay for time?
Yeah, I think we're okay for time. Chris
Great.
can start setting up the breakout sessions, and
wonderful.
Yeah, we can continue.
I saw Deborah's comment about cameras on. Our faculty at our university, we have 321 cameras on, and if we want to check with them on something, they have to turn the camera on. That is an expectation here. Now, they're not required to keep their cameras on the full time, but if we say 321 cameras on and we want them to hold up some work or whatever, that's an expectation in the class.
There was a question about group size, Doug, that I think is really a great one. What, some of these techniques, do they work better with smaller groups or bigger groups? Is there any limit on size? What have you found?
So my largest class is around 300 some. It's co-taught with Nancy and I. And my smallest is a doctoral seminar with 12 people. And so we have to adjust. And so in the large one, I do a lot more play pause it video because I want to see their thinking. I do require that they record what they learned, and I do random checks on them to see what their thinking was. I don't watch all of them, but I do pop through their Flipgrids because I want to know what's sticking with them and what's not sticking.
Great.
Okay, are we ready for breakout sessions?
I think it would be great if we could all thank Doug for his excellent keynote. Thank you very much, Doug. And there was a link to in the chat to the series, the Distance Learning Playbook series, for those of you who are interested in taking a look and finding out more. And Doug, are you sticking around for our breakout discussions? Fantastic. Glad to hear it. Okay, so Chris, over to you to take us into the next phase.
Thanks, everybody. There will be some breakout groups being opened. So if you can choose your session that you want to go to. If you'd rather stay and ask some questions with Doug, you can just stay in the main room.
Where do we see the options?
You should all see it at the
just
bottom.
On the bottom. Next
to share screen, reactions, breakout rooms.
And if you haven't done this before, when you click the bottom button, there's a little blue number like 0350. You have to click the number, not the name of the room. We had this problem here that the students didn't know how to get into the choice rooms.
If you're having any issues, just message me on the chat and I'll assign the room.
There they all go.
Okay.
Let them populate.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
I was wondering about the videos sound really cool. So I just do basic quizzes to assess knowledge, but have you found that the students' self-report of their understanding matches their actual understanding?
In the videos, we see better, application performance with those than the quizzes, because most of them are telling each other the answers or Googling all the quiz questions. There's a system here in the US called Chegg. It has all the answers to all of our quizzes. As soon as we give it, someone copies it and puts it in there, and the students pay $50 or whatever for 6 months for a Chegg subscription. So the videos force them to pay attention. They have to respond in the video. That's why we went to the videos as a quiz function rather than the LMS quiz functions, even if it randomizes, because there are pay for play systems out there that, like, the moment you give a quiz, one of them is going to give it to Chegg here. And so it's not reliable anymore.
Okay,
Can I ask a question as well, please, Doug, following on from Rika? I'm interested in anonymous versus identifiable comments. There's a lot of discussion at my university about, whether or not you get more participation if you anonymize that. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes. So we do. I didn't really spend time on this. We use Zoom at our university. We've been using Zoom for years. So it wasn't new for us when the pandemic closed us. We used Zoom, even though we were mostly synchronous physically. But so we use Zoom polls, and that is very, very common inside a synchronous session to have poll questions come up that are completely anonymous, because students are very likely to tell us the truth in that, like, I am totally not getting this. We do also use a waterfall chat with timestamps to check if they're actually participating in the process. So you'll see both here, the videos and where they have to record what they learned, and the videos where they have to answer the questions are not anonymous. But in a synchronous session, we do offer some anonymous responses. And I saw the comment about videos. We will say 3, 2, 1 videos on, and a lot of times it looks like this, where you cannot see the face at all. That is very, very common. I say to my students all the time, I just love teaching to ceiling fans. It's my favorite thing to watch all the ceiling fans go in gallery view. And I can't tell you how many students point at the ceiling because their cameras are supposed to be on, but they don't want to be in it. Oh, by the way, for those of you who are still here and teaching, if you are teaching in Zoom, I encourage you to hide the self view so you're not looking at yourself while you're teaching. If you haven't seen that feature yet, go to your own video where you see yourself, put your cursor over it, click the 3 little dots, the ellipse there. The bottom choice is hide self view. And we just finished a study on this. The students notice within minutes of their instructor turning off self view, because you are more natural, you move your body more when you're not staring at yourself in camera. And so when we taught this group of teachers, and we were in class live, and we tell them, now turn off your self view or you can't see yourself anymore. So there's a point in the class, and we watch to see how the dynamics change. It is within moments the students are commenting in the chat, because none of us are used to staring at ourselves for hours on end on a camera. And so we become very self-conscious. And when we hide self-view as an instructor, it's pretty cool. It's just natural, and it's more, you move more and you put your hands up more and you do natural things. So I encourage you, if you haven't tried it, the next time you give a lecture, a synchronous, just turn it off for a little bit and see how it feels for you and see how your students are responding.
That's a nice tip.
Another question, if I may. Sorry, I'm just curious, because you've got so much knowledge about this, and my background's teaching. I've always taught. Okay, I used to teach in secondary schools, and now I teach in the university, and we're going online. So a lot of what you said is, good pedagogy. It's that simple, right? But because a lot of us are teaching students, in my case anyway, social science students who are perhaps in some cases number phobic, right? Yeah. One of the things that you talked about was the stop at the stop and putting time pressure on. And I wondered if you'd any thoughts about, particularly with teaching statistics, when it gets more numerical and graphical, whether or not you had any thoughts about that actually creating a very anxious environment for students, and what you do in that case.
I think that, well, the play posit allows them to have as much time as they need, the system we use for video. That is not a time pressure. But in class, when we're looking for a response, like we used to use clickers in physical school. We have a room that holds 550 is our biggest room. And so there'll be usually 2 or 3 of us in the room. Every chair has an audience response system built into it, and they can push buttons and it graphs it. There's 3 projectors there. One of them is the response system. One is your PowerPoint, one's video. And so I'm just used to asking students for response, these responses. So that's part of how I teach. I need to get that feedback. Are they understanding? The waterfall chat is around responding. Are you with me? Are you able to respond? I don't know that I've ever asked them to calculate something on the spot and hit it in and put it in there. It's more around, which tool would you use now and why? And then, like, why were we using this tool? And I want to timestamp it to see, were they with me? Did they respond? Even if it's not right. Because if I go through it and say, oh, wow, they're all saying this, and that's not what I was thinking. Now I need to clarify. So we do some time pressure ones, but the actual calculations, which tool you're going to use and to calculate would probably be more of a play pause it video than a live lecture video, live lecture time.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. Have you all seen the new feature in Zoom where you can put your video yourself inside the PowerPoint? Have you all seen this?
No.
It's so cool. Let me just show it to you really quickly and see if you notice the difference. It takes a second to import the slides this way. You can't just share immediately. So do you notice the difference of where I'm at?
Yeah.
So it's almost like watching TV.
Wow.
Sorry,
And you
how
can,
do you do this?
you like it, don't you?
Yeah, I like it a lot. I like it. It will save recording things and having you up in the top corner. Yeah, brilliant.
So when I build slides for this feature, I always leave the upper right empty. Like I didn't build this deck for this feature, but I always leave the upper right and I put myself here. And you can also make yourself bigger if you want. I mean, I could be much bigger if I wanted to. So I love this feature. The only thing that doesn't work in this feature is video. You can't play video because there's no sound. So you all have screen share privilege. So if you choose, let me stop share. If you click screen share, it's probably only one at a time is going to be allowed to do this. If you click screen share, what's going to happen is it's going to open your window and it's going to be set on basic. And if you move the button to advanced, there's an option to have PowerPoint be your background. And so what I'm technically doing is changing my background to be a series of slides. So it puts me inside it in a very different view. And when I start, this has only been available for, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks. It's still technically beta, but everyone has it. The students responded immediately because it was more like a TV. But then when I show a video, I stop that view and I play the video full screen. When I do that, I turn off the self view because then I'm not in the bar at the top. I'm only showing inside their PowerPoint, and it's just different. They're not used to that. So all of a sudden you're cool because it's not the PowerPoint with the image of my teacher on the side, because now my teacher is inside the PowerPoint.
Nice.
So it's a feature that's kind of fun to play with. If you want to push it, you can push it now. Push screen share, and it'll open, and you can see the basic and the advanced. And if you see the advanced, the first option is slides as background, and then you just pick whatever slide deck you want. It'll just take a second to import it, and that now it puts you inside the video.
Good.
Inside the PowerPoint, sorry. So it's just a nice little feature that's different for people. A different look and feel.
Thank you. I'm going to move to the breakout room, but thank you very much.
Nice to meet you.
Doug, I put in a book. I've just downloaded a book on Audible. Actually, sound is really important. Okay, so I had a virus earlier this year and I lost some of my hearing. And when I was recovering, I started to listen to books, and it's made me realize the importance of voice. Yes. In a way that I've never appreciated before. Anyway, this book is called Distracted by James M. Lang. It's only just been released. I don't know if you've heard of it or him.
I haven't. I saw your chat.
Incredibly good, and it's talking about the need to not teach for 2 hours solid, right, because of the way we've evolved, and the need to deal with how students learn nowadays. And I'm really loving it. It's very philosophical as well, so that's my gift to you. From awesome. And I'll shut up. You're welcome. Nice to be in touch.
When I saw the chat, I have opened Amazon, so I'm reading the review on Amazon right now when you just said it, because I just clicked on it. And it's #1 in new release in adolescent psych.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. But it's only just been released, hasn't it, in the last week or so, I think. Yeah. Yeah. Let me know what you think.
Thank you.
Right. I'm going to go into breakout room 2.
Enjoy.
Yeah, thank you.